Hello, everyone. Happy Friday.
Happy
Happy
Friday.
Friday!
Oh, we made it. Amazing.
No,
How did that happen?
it's been a week. It's been a long week.
Well, it's been a more exciting week for some of us, right, Kat?
I know.
Joining a new company and onboarding is always an adventure.
You gonna tell us a little bit about it?
You mean I just started at Cisco in Cisco security side of the house as an IC on platform engineering projects.
Ooh.
It has a secret internal code name and everything, so really get that culty vibe going. So great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Culty vibe. I love it. What are some of the technologies you're gonna get to work on? And
Let's see. Okay, so obviously Cisco acquired Isovalent, and we're all about that Cilium magic. There is some engineering pressure on the back end for solving some gaps in workloads that Cilium just wasn't really great at wrapping. So that's going to be super exciting. It has to do with the platform that I'm building. We also have Splunk, and it is OTel. There's a lot of OTel interfaces being built around Splunk at this point. So I haven't done a lot with OTel. I've been very curious, been on the agenda, I want to get into it. So now I finally will get to. And then we have an acquisition of a AI security tooling in our portfolio, and I haven't gotten into that yet, so I don't really know what's there. But I am living at the intersection of all of those components there in the Kubernetes world, and gonna get to kind of dive into making sure that that's well integrated into Meraki and all of the rest of the networking portfolio.
There's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah. Well, it's actually neat because it's a centrally managed SaaS control plane over your network hardware, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're thinking about how to actually manage hybrid infrastructure, whether you're all in on AWS and all of your services being in the cloud or not, you still usually have some kind of network infrastructure that branches out into the physical world. And so whether you are repatriating or onto private cloud or running hybrid or multi-cloud, we're sitting right there at the intersection of where all the things connect. And I get to play with the Kubernetes. It's so exciting.
That is very exciting. I'm sure you get to work with and hang out with Duffy and Christine and a bunch of other people that I love and enjoy working with.
Yeah, I've been pinging around on internal chat. I still need to. You know what? Actually, Duffy hasn't even replied to me. I'm gonna hold a grudge now.
That's okay. I catch up with him later on today, and I'll mention it to him that he's got to reply back to you.
I give him hell, and then I can be I don't know. Marino's just being a bully for no reason. All the gaslighting.
All right.
What are we up to? What are we doing today?
We have to vibe code our way out of a situation.
Are we in a situation?
No. That makes
I wouldn't say it's a situation. No, we're not in a situation. It's just I think we've spent some time doing a lot of tangenting that we haven't really finalized or finished up our little app that we were building out when we first started the stream.
Yeah.
So I guess part of it's figuring out what is. Well, let's. I have a little diagram I can pull up.
Let's look at it.
I'm all about the diagrams and the documentation. Can you even vibe code without docs and documentation? Because that's basically where my vibe coding starts all the time.
Oh, I just keep it all in my head. That's where it should be, right? No, it's a terrible idea.
My memory skills? No.
Oh, this is way better than the original diagram that I drew.
Thanks. I put it together today.
So what is acceptance criteria here? You have no idea? Okay.
Well, yeah, this was very much I have this vague idea of I create a lot of podcasts and I want some sort of workflow that will help me streamline the stuff after the podcast is edited. And so the initial thought was, if I dump it into an S3 bucket, I have a transcription lambda jump in there and transcribe the contents of the podcast. And then I have another lambda that invokes Bedrock to do an analysis of that transcript and produce some artifacts from it. That's about where we got to. Is this all exists today and works.
So you did the hard part, now you get to do the fun part, which is the transcript analysis?
So now's the question, like, what do I want the transcript analysis box to actually do? Because right now, I have the actual code here. I think this is the transcribe function. This is the prompt here. Wow, that's really large, but that's good. So the prompt we're actually sending it is, you are a transcript analyst. Please summarize this transcript with key details. It's not a great prompt. And it really, we get back the transcribed text along with the result, and then we write that result back out to S3. But that's not really what I want as an artifact to be able to use for post-podcast stuff. I think what I really want is I want podcast notes. I want maybe a short form blog post and maybe a few social media posts and some suggested images, perhaps, for the cover art for that episode.
Ooh, I like this so much.
So that's what I think we need to add to the diagram is, instead of just ask for analysis, I need 4 or 5 things here.
Yeah. So I'm also thinking, all right, we've got to determine what that output is, but I'm also thinking about 2 additional things, like, how do we make this more user friendly so someone doesn't have to go fork the entire repo and then, go out and set up transcribe and everything, but maybe offer it as a service, right? Maybe provide a front end to it so that someone can go in and then, they get presented with an upload button where they can upload their, or maybe even point to a location where their MP3 or M4A or whatever audio file is located, and let us take care of the rest, right?
So you're envisioning I don't even know if that would be a lambda, but
well, we could run it as a S3 web page, static page or something like that, right? Which just invokes the random functions because we're not really doing anything. But oh wait, I wonder if we can even do an upload with an S3 hosted page.
You could probably do it with JavaScript. I don't know JavaScript very well, but that's what coding is all about.
I was about to say. Well, I think Akansha knows a little bit of that JavaScript that maybe we can pull her into one of these streams and have her do it for us.
What does Akansha not know now? She just does everything.
The other day, she was telling me about. Actually, this is good for you, by the way, because she's been digging deep into OTel, and she showed me this. I can't remember if it was Lucid. No, it was Excalidraw. This Excalidraw board with all this OTel content, and I'm like, I only know the surface of OTel and how to configure mesh to use OTel, and that's about it.
All right.
So maybe we can get her on one day and have her talk us through this stuff.
Hell yeah.
Are you okay with that, Akansha?
I was thinking about the front end problem as well, and then I started thinking about the fact that I don't necessarily want anybody in the world to come load their MP3s into my S3 bucket and start using the transcription services. That's ripe for reviews. So then I was like, well, crap. Then we need some sort of registration or authentication or something like that. So only registered users can use it, which means we need an identity service, which then, and I was like,
and then you have PII, and then...
Yeah, so I was like, might just leave that the simple route right now and just be able to upload it to an S3 bucket. And if you have access to the S3 bucket, that's pretty easy. And then yeah, we could try to slap a UI on the front at some point. But more important to me is like having these back end deliverables. And I was thinking after maybe we invoke Bedrock like 4 times, for different things, and then take all of those things as files and put them into a zip file and write that back to the S3 bucket as a deliverable, and then use something to deliver that, maybe SES to deliver it as an email. I don't know.
I'm really excited to see the the pipelines, because some of these tasks can be run in parallel, but things like wrapping it all up with a tweet or whatever, and things like that, some of the artifacts you don't really want to create until you can generate a prompt for that artifact from outputs of other steps in this chain. So I'm kind of curious to see, is this all going to be like Lambda? Because it sounds like Lambda perfect stuff.
I mean, the majority of what we're doing here is in Lambda.
Yeah.
Aside the Terraform that we've got hidden behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is a Lambda too. I just didn't put it. Anything that's yellow is Lambda.
Got it. Cool.
And so I just figured this Lambda could have a few functions in it that are each deliverable that I want, and then a final function that zips them all up and sends them back to S3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, shout out to Izzy. Thanks for coming by. Hope you're enjoying your lunch. What's for lunch, by the way? Because I'm getting kind of hungry.
I'm kind of hungry right now, so I'm curious what's on the menu.
All right, so we need a better prompt for this first one. You are a podcast producer.
With post-production capabilities. I mean, the more context we give it, the more data.
Using the
So, I was also thinking, like, all right, we're gonna come up with a front end, but also like hooking into other systems too. Like I really like what Kyler did with her agent, how she's got her Vera bot running in Slack. I would like a situation where, it summarizes this and then sends it out to like Slack as reminders or maybe calendar invites if we have like action items from that transcript or podcast or something of that nature. Like if we have a follow-up for a video, like let's say we're having another guest, it just like it knows who the guest is and then automatically sends them an email saying here's your invite, and then sets up the next video or like live stream. I don't know, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I'm just thinking like where we can go. Izzy says Singapore may fun with a very unhealthy amount of spice. I don't know, I don't think there's any unhealthy amounts of spices. Yeah, I don't think so.
No, if you're not sweating, then you haven't hit unhealthy yet, and even then it's still a ways off. I miss my spicy food back home, but I'm starting to find it here in California too.
Kat, did you freeze?
Did I freeze? What happened? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. OBS, come back.
Oh, you're using OBS for this? No.
Yeah, I shouldn't.
How?
What do you mean?
I thought you just logged in to the StreamYard link.
No. Well, yeah, I did, but I'm
using
the OBS camera.
Yeah, the virtual camera.
Interesting.
Okay.
I've got a menu pulled up at the side here for like some of this spicy Asian food that I can find close to me. But then that means I actually have to leave and go pick it up or get it delivered. But then I've got back to back to back calls until about 4:30 today. So that's not happening. I'll just skip lunch today.
All right. I think I
That's
wrote a
not
better
gonna happen.
prompt for the show notes.
You want to read it out?
Sure. You're a podcast producer with post-production capabilities. Using the attached transcript, you are going to create show notes. The notes should include an introduction paragraph that lays out the core premise, then a couple paragraphs exploring additional themes, then a list of links that were mentioned in the episode, and finally a list of chapters with timestamps. And then I give the format of the chapters, the way it should lay it out. And the show notes should be written in Markdown format because that's how I roll. The transcript is as follows. Like a way better prompt, right?
That is a very contextual prompt.
Okay.
One thing I was thinking about is maybe you can give the system a message that has this context ahead of time, and then we can create a separate prompt that just tells the system what we're looking for. I'm trying to remember how I did this with OpenAI. I don't know. It's something we can revisit later on so that we don't have to shove an entire prompt here. We can just give it its like, here are the guardrails that you need to operate in and like some of the criteria that we're after. And then as a follow on to that, here's what we want.
I like that it filled out like half of this for me. You know, this post should be in Markdown format. I don't need the post to be in Markdown. What else should I tell the social media manager about the podcast?
I mean, do we want to? So, what is the social media manager doing in that prompt?
Of 4 social media posts for LinkedIn.
So, would you want it to sound like you, or would you want it to sound very automatic, robotic?
I haven't provided it any context for sounding like me, so maybe that's a later thing where we add in some sort of RAG or something to this, so I can say, here's my voice that I tend to write in. Leverage that when you're putting it together.
All right, you just said the word
like
RAG.
That's something Kat can help us out with.
Yeah, you just said the word RAG, so you're gonna have to explain to the audience what RAG is now.
Retrieval Augmented Generation. So I'm definitely not the expert on this, but as I understand it, I can take a whole bunch of my existing writing and chunk it up and load it into a vector database and then present that to the model along with this context in the transcript and say, you know, reference this as my voice. This is the way I write when you're composing these social media posts or the show notes. And I know there's more to it than that, but that's how I understand it right now.
I like that. Kat, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want me to jump in? Because, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Vector databases are really, really cool. I do not know enough about them yet, but first off, so I really like explaining the vector embeddings with pictures first, because basically if we think about pictures as being worth 1,000 words, that's literally what we're doing with vector databases. We're taking a picture, we're describing that picture semantically with a whole bunch of words that explains what's in that picture. So you might have a red car, a green dog, and a purple sunshine, and you're basically just describing all of the content of the image. And you're doing it very, very verbosely. And then a vector embeddings model will return a multi-dimension string, or in other words, it generates floats, and you might have an array of 50 floats, or 1,600 floats or 3,000 and some odd floats. That dimension of your vector database is just determining how many floats you're going to be generating for each chunk or semantic chunk that you are vectorizing. And that can be pictures, it can be sounds, it can be text. So in our case, we're uploading a transcript, which is made out of lots of tokens, which each token may or may not be a word, but it roughly equates to a word. And then once we've created the floats, we take that vector and we upload it to our vector database, which is basically, instead of say like a columnar or a table database like SQL or a key value store like etcd, where we have a vector database, and it plots these floats in, it's almost easier to just imagine it as 3-dimensional space, but it's actually like 3,000 dimension space or higher. Each one of those floats is a dimension. So if you had a 3-dimension vector database, it would literally just be 3 floats for each vector. That's not really precise enough, because what we end up doing is operating on the vectors that are uploaded to the database to identify all kinds of qualities, whether it's nearest neighbor for similarity search, or if you are hunting for certain tags of content and then finding the clusters of related content there. And once you retrieve your content that is related to your prompt, you can do all kinds of things. That gets uploaded into the context before your prompt ships off to your LLM API. And then the LLM API has your prompt, your conversation history, and it's augmented with the retrieved vectors or the semantically related content. So if you're trying to find out, how Johnny Appleseed and apple trees are related, you're going to have content about that from your vector database in your prompt, and it's going to generate your response with that additional context included. Sometimes you get really unrelated content though. So you might want to have an extra step in there where you actually have kind of a thinking process where an intermediary LLM looks at the retrieved content, looks at the prompt and chat history, and says, is all of this retrieved content actually applicable to the prompt that the user submitted? And it might filter out, reformat, or retry a different RAG prompt retrieval to get other more related content, or make sure that you have high quality content from your RAG for your prompt. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to your RAG pipeline to actually slowly enhance the quality. And then, of course, there's a lot of tunables just with creating the vector database. What embeddings model are you using? How are you actually chunking content? So like with Markdown, you can chunk it off of like the hashtag headers, right? Like 1 and 2 and 3 and stuff like that. So if you wanted to use headings to chunk your content, you can do that. If you want to chunk content by an entire document or by one paragraph or just a sentence at a time, you can do that. If you want to chunk content based on like code blocks and such, like all of these are opportunities for developing your chunking content algorithm before it actually drops into your embeddings and then ships into your vector database to feed future retrieval operations.
That was a very detailed answer.
I've been playing with Milvus recently. It's really cool. It's as a vector database. It is very distributed.
Okay.
And then it also has a lot of features like allowing you to upload metadata with your vectors. So if I want to know what document that a chunk that I retrieved comes from, I can have the document name, even the revision, things like that. If I want to know what website something came from, if I scraped website content and dropped it into my database. So say I'm doing like documentation, or for us, for our chatbot here, if we have a link that's associated with the podcast, we might actually want that link shipping to our prompt so that we have like linked references in our generated content, things like that, right? They also have collections. So if we have podcasts that are just, Livestream on M.A.I.N, maybe that's its own collection, and we can make sure that when we retrieve content, we're only retrieving content related to this. Or we might have other related or unrelated categories in our own in the one vector database service that we're serving. So you can kind of carve it all up and chunk it out. One of the things that I really want to try is versioning my collections, because if you create a vector database, you are stuck with just that one dimensionality. You can't change the dimensions of your vector database on the fly, and you can't change which embeddings model you're using on the fly. So if you want to change your embeddings, you have to create a new collection or a new database if you're using another service, reprocess all of your vector embeddings and upload them, and then switch over to the new vector embeddings database or collection. And that's something that I want to do a lot, because with things like Light LLM or Kong API or Kong LLM proxy or some of the others that are out there, being able to like benchmark your RAG and the quality of your application ends up being really important if you're actually like serving this as a service that you want, to have good reputation on.
So let me ask you a hypothetical, right? Would it be possible to have some sort of translation layer on top of your vector database so that I can maybe translate to a common format? Like you ingest from various different types of vector embeddings and then translate it into a common format, so you're not having to swap out your vector DB a lot. Would that be possible to do? Or could we come
I'm
up
a
with
little
something?
unsure. So you mean like convert existing vectors into a different layout?
Yeah, exactly.
You can take your original content and rerun it through a pipeline after you make a pipeline change. But to my knowledge, just taking existing vectorized content and shipping it off to a totally different pipeline is not something that I've heard of people doing. I think preserving your original content is the approach I would take. But at the same time, I have not been very deep in the production side of how a lot of modern RAG implementations have been done. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
One thing that I hope that we can all strive for, not just us on this live stream, but for others out there that are building with AI, is to just create some level of standardization so that you don't have different models doing different things, and you can, speak a common language of sorts, if you will. Because then we get into complexity and then supportability related issues and then interoperability issues as well. But anyways, Ned, what are we doing?
I'm vibing, man. I'm just vibing over here. Listen to what
You've been just jamming it out.
Yeah. So what I figured is we already have an existing function that does called summarize transcript with Bedrock, which is now a bad name for it, but I don't want to change a function name because that'll probably break everything. This one uses Claude and passes the prompt and the transcript data. So I can reuse this function for the show notes, for social media posts, for the episode title. Like I can just reuse that function for each of these. But to create an image, I can't use the Sonnet model because that's not what it does. I have to use Stable Diffusion instead, and the process is going to be different enough. So rather than trying to write that function on my own, I just asked Claude to write it for me. And so it wrote this create image with Bedrock function that will put together a prompt using the transcribed text and the prompt that I've outlined, and then it creates a payload that's going to create an image that's 1280 by 1280, which is what you want for a podcast thumbnail. And then it invokes the stable diffusion model. And I also cross-referenced an example from Amazon for this to make sure it's like that's an actual model that exists.
So it's not hallucinating.
Yeah. Now, one thing that they have in theirs that is not in ours is generating a seed, which requires random. So I might drop that in here. And now instead of seed being 0, we can use that, and I'll have to go up here and import random. Okay. That should be good. All right, so now in theory, I get back all of these different results. So I wanted to write these out to a file and then zip up that file and write that back to the S3 bucket instead of just the one thing that we were doing before. So I'm going to add a little thing in here. Well, maybe let's vibe it out. Let's see if Copilot can help me.
I love it.
Take each result and write it a file based on the result name. All the files to archive and upload the S3. See if that's enough information for it to do something useful. Yep, that's what I want. Okay. It's going to try it. Well, knock on wood, see what it does.
So it generates the edits, but it's not going to just directly put it unless you approve of those changes, right?
So I have it set to edit mode.
Oh.
So there's ask, edit, and agents. If I just use the ask, it will tell me what changes it would make, but it won't actually make the changes in the file. In edit mode, it'll make the changes in one or more files and create files if it needs to, but it won't actually commit those changes until I accept the changes. And then agent will do the whole thing and just be like, so I did this. You like it? And agent, I think, is what you have to have it on if you want to leverage any MCP servers.
Interesting.
Yeah, it needs to be at that level to engage.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like it's getting there. Thinking about it.
Hey, in the private chat, I dropped a link for Gist. I just kind of tried throwing together content generation, like outputs design doc. I don't know if
that's really
that
cool.
be relevant. The idea being that before we create the actual content generator flow, we extract, take the transcript and break it down into fundamental components. And then we feed that into the content generation pipeline to get our specified outputs for visual assets, social media stuff like LinkedIn, Twitter, blog, whatever, and then more technical documents.
Okay.
And then we can kind of refine the actual content type descriptions. It would be kind of fun to turn it into a schema. But I was just playing with the types of outputs and such that we can create.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. And this, would you envision that this would all be handled by a single Lambda, or are you thinking we would break this out into like separate Lambda invocations or do something else?
Yeah, I almost feel like this is an opportunity to whiteboard just a little bit, because the options for the outputs from the content generator, I mean, they kind of come in different forms, and we might be able to even put a scoring metric on them. Like, if a podcast is highly technical and we have a technical blog output, we can have that scored like on a ranking system by NLP that says, hey, this technical blog post is, a 3 out of 10, because maybe we were just being super social and shooting the shit the whole stream, right? Or it might be we cranked out some code and the technical blog output is, a 9 out of 10. Let's ship it, right?
So
Things like that.
let me ask you this then: how would it go about being able to read the video side of it? Like, so if we're typing our code on screen, would it be able to pick up on that, or is there something we can do for it to pick up on that actual code? I mean, it's also, I'm asking a scary question too.
Yeah, it could be done. At the moment, I really like building this out from the transcript analysis and then bolting on video analysis later on.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is supposed to be for podcasts specifically, so it's like verbal, audible stuff, right? Or am I oversimplifying and jumping to conclusions again?
My original thought was this was specifically for audio-based podcasts. So not even trying to deal with the video side of things yet, because that is a lot more processing power you'll need to actually look at video and extract information than audio.
That's going to cost a lot more.
There's a couple apps already out there. There's one called Clap that you upload a video and it tries to create 8 to 10 shorts based off of that video by finding interesting sections. They're obviously using some kind of AI to look at the video and determine what those key sections are. But yeah, I have no idea what they're doing on the back end. So
I imagine there's probably a Lambda that's kind of like the controller, and then I imagine some things can be done in parallel, like creating an abstract, a technical blog post, and any like show notes can be done in parallel. And then doing something like a social media post would be generated from those outputs as like promotional, and like any infographic would come from that as well. So those would probably be chained after. But also it might all just fit in one Lambda for now, if we just want to like actually get it running first and then, optimize later.
Right. I almost envision that some of the visual assets would be part of the social media content. So I don't know if it would make sense to generate those first. But I mean, there's no easy way to, unless you're going to start integrating this with like Buffer or something, and then loading the actual social media post into Buffer and providing the image as part of that. But to me, that's a totally separate Lambda. That's your Buffer integration.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like, ultimately, it would be great if it could just do all of this and then place drafts in Buffer and place for the blog posts. Like, I use Hugo for my blog. So if it could just drop that markdown page in Hugo, create a branch in my existing GitHub and create that file, and then create a pull request and then leave it for my review. like all those connectors could be built. So it really is upload the transcript and then go get a cup of coffee. And by the time I'm back, all these other things have happened.
So Claude Code can do a bunch of that unattended.
Yeah. You mean just using like MCP servers and doing it all locally at the desktop?
Well, whether it's in the on the desktop or in the Lambda. But like we can create the templates for how to create a feature branch and check out the feature branch and create a GitHub issue, create a PR, write all those descriptions in, write the blog post, commit the blog post, write the blog post, review the blog post, revise it, commit it, so that all you have to do is look at the PR and merge it when you're done. Or, manually sprinkle in the magic or whatever before you commit it.
Don't want to. It looks like it wrote some good stuff here, except it wanted to upload each individual file along with the archive. And I don't get that. So it was trying to be helpful, but the point of putting them in a zip file was that I don't have all these individual files running around. And it's putting it in outputs, transcription job name. Yeah, that seems fine. Okay. This may or may not work, I guess.
Does the
moment of truth?
Does
Just
the zip
run it?
file get a date by chance? Because if you do a preceding date,
it does not look like it's just using the transcription job name for naming it.
I'd almost say put an extra function there to build that name and include a date with like year, month, day as the leading file name, so it self-sorts if you want, or something like that. That's just my brain being very annoying Unix.
No, I like that.
Otherwise, that S3 bucket could end up very confusing to filter through.
I love how we can be very specific with what we want, and then there's going to be a 99.9% accuracy hit rate with what gets put out by Copilot. Like, think about 2 years ago. Would we have been able to do this 2 years ago?
I mean, eventually, yes.
With $1 million of engineering, sure. It's really shocking to me. I feel almost like vibe coding is going to lower the cost of code in general, because like right now, if you think about the millions of dollars invested in very middle of the road software, like you can do it with a person or a couple of people instead of a whole team at this point. And I feel like that's going to really change the velocity and the table stakes that we're talking about. Like when it comes to, I want to refactor this module to clean up tech debt, and that's a 2-day task instead of a 3-week task, right? Like things like that start maybe making it look like we can dig ourselves out of some of the hole that we've been in as an industry, because we're still understaffed as an industry.
Yes.
So
I was talking to someone from the federal sector that worked for GitLab, and they had a couple occasions where they had people using their Duo AI agent to try to replatform some pretty old code. And it was taking a project that would have taken a year and a half down to 2 months.
Yeah.
because it was just that much more efficient at rewriting the code, especially from one language to another.
Yeah.
Especially if
Well-
they trained it on it ahead of time.
And that has a lot to do with the value of a business and the competitive edge of a business. Because like if you look at the old, whether it's Zen or OpenStack or VMware or AWS even, like those run on so much legacy code base and technical debt, where we as an industry have solved a lot of problems by implementing new ways of modularizing code, new libraries, things like that, or like learned how to take monoliths and turn them into microservices, and all of that stuff becomes more accessible to companies that might not be in the Fortune 500. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that pressures even the Fortune 500 to evolve and at speed to be able to compete with the smaller companies doing more now.
Not that one. This is using Terraform to deploy everything.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I like Terraform.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we need to talk about how we can do this all with Pulumi soon. Actually, we were talking about this on one of our previous streams, and that's one of the reasons we thought we can bring you on. And then we totally went in a completely different direction in that last episode, which is totally fine. But we still need to get back to Pulumi.
Pulumi's releasing some neat features at a decent cadence still. Like, I am still surprised, which that's unusual for me, to like really adopt a technology and then years later still feel like it's advancing at a fast pace.
Okay.
Maybe I just feel old and feel like I don't have the ability to learn fast enough and keep up.
Seems like you're learning pretty fast.
I end up with more questions every night when I go to bed than I started the day with, so.
I think that's just normal. That means
I
you're
don't
still
like
curious.
normal then.
Normal for you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know.
I love getting that notification that I've got a meeting in 10 minutes. My Fridays are always the busiest. I don't know why.
Really?
Yes. I think like when I think about the week, my Thursdays are the quietest, and my Mondays are just normal. Tuesdays are normal. Wednesdays are normal. Fridays like no break for you.
Hopefully it's not a draining meeting, at least.
Well, it's not a draining one. It's just that I've got to present, and in its own way, it can be. Maybe it's draining. I don't know.
So presenting now is great.
Presenting now is fine because y'all are doing the work. I'm just sitting here smiling. That's it.
Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
All right, well, I uploaded the file to S3, so we'll see what happens with our lambdas.
So is this just watching uploads in that S3 bucket and staging them?
Yeah. So that's what this one should be doing, is just, it should have caught the fact that I uploaded a new file to that path. And then all it should do is kick off the transcribe. That's today's date, yes. Created. Wait. Yep. Okay. It is currently transcribing. That's what this Current status is in progress. Cool. So transcribe processor should, once the transcription is complete, should kick off. Scribe. Okay, there's this one running. Well, this one completed. Okay. So in theory, this one should just run.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to go back to GitHub and find our repo. There it is.
Are you going to share it out?
Yeah, so that everyone, if they want to, can follow along on their own.
Too many tokens.
Uh-oh. Did you just... oh, never mind. I still got bill credit for AWS, so I think I'm okay. Until like next month, my bill shows up to be $1,000 again.
Wait.
All right, so picked up on the transcribe. When calling invoke model operation, reach max retries or too many tokens. Please wait before trying again. It's angry with me.
It's on smoke break.
Like, yo. Too much. Too much.
It's like on a Friday. Ned, come on. I really love that around December, I have to add a system prompt to ChatGPT or whatever and tell it there's a platform bug reporting the wrong date. It's actually the middle of summer. Just so that it's not Christmas lazy, holiday season lazy. And it makes a big difference, or at least it did last season.
That is bizarre.
I mean, it's trained on a lot of GitHub, and everybody kind of like takes a slump around the holiday season. And so it's like, yeah, I'll do that next year.
All right. All right. So it looks like it's angry with me. There might have to be some sort of cooldown period between the various requests. I'm gonna have to dig more into what the restrictions are when you're invoking the model, because it's definitely angry about that.
That's okay. It might be a good.
Do you have the AWS documentation MCP server?
I don't think I have it installed. I have the Azure one, but not the AWS one. So
yeah, if you get the AWS one, then I bet you can drop this error into your context and have it research that with the AWS docs and provide a recommended solution.
Docs.
I will say I have to bow out in a minute or two, but y'all are welcome to continue on.
Oh no, we're coming up on the top of the hour. It's always nice to end on an error.
Right? We've got something to do next week as well. Actually, we do have a guest joining us next week. A special guest. And she is on her AI journey as well. And I wonder if she's listening into this conversation. She might be. She might not be. That's totally cool. But let me just quickly share my screen. And we are going to bring on Nina. So Nina's in the intersection of AI and security space. And, you know, I figured she's been posting a lot about some of the work she's been doing. We asked her, do you want to be on one of our episodes? And she said, yeah, absolutely. So we will have her next week, and I will share the agenda.
Awesome.
And, all right.
I might do a little work in the background to figure out what this problem is, because it's going to bother me until I get it fixed.
You got 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks.
That should be plenty of time.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for coming by and hanging out with us. We hope you have an excellent Friday. You know where to find us. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Blue Sky. And we'll catch you all next week. Take care.
Bye, everyone.